So by popular demand, just like the Sherman video we did where we went over all the weak spots of Shermans and then we also went over the differences between them, we're going to be doing that now for the T-34 family of tanks whenever it comes to War Thunder. So as you can see, all these tanks right here, these are basically the tanks that you'll find within the tech trees of War Thunder. We're going to be going over all of them, the differences, the weak spots, how to defeat them, and then also some just tips around them. And then we're going to be going over at the very end the premiums that you can find within the War Thunder tech trees. So this should be pretty fun. So the thing about T-34s, and it's something that a lot of people need to know about them, and this pretty much goes for all of them, is that they really benefit from hiding the silhouette of the vehicle. And what I mean by that is, like, for example, with this T-34 prototype, the weak spots on it are the turret. Pretty much every T-34 has a weak spot that goes for the turret, but the actual hull itself basically cannot be pinned. Like, this is a Sherman. This is a Sherman 75, and even if you go for stuff like the MG port, it still cannot pin this tank. So a lot of people use bushes whenever it comes to making their tanks better, and so it's a very wise option if you ever see someone that's just covered in bushes, especially these early T-34s. Just get one side of the turret right here and just MG it, and then get the bushes gone, and then once the bush is actually gone, you shoot right there, and it should be an easy kill whenever it comes to these vehicles. Now, to be going over what both of these vehicles are right now, the T-34 prototype is one of the first T-34s that you'll see, but it's going to be a very rare one. The T-34 1940 is also the exact same vehicle as this one, except for it doesn't have a little spotlight on top of it. So that's the only differences between both of these vehicles. But this is the first T-34s that you'll see within War Thunder. And to be quite honest with you, in a down tier, these things can be insane. But once they start seeing guns which are very equivalent to their own, it's a very easy time to take them out. The only problem about it is that the weak spot itself is pretty small. I mean, especially on the left side over here, the left side weak spot, like you can shoot right in there, is a little bit harder to hit. So I always go for the right side, at least for me. So that's the biggest thing whenever it comes to these early T-34s, is that you just need to know where to shoot them. Whenever you see these vehicles, it's very unadvised to go for the hull itself. Also, the dreaded driver's port is one that you never really ever want to go for on any of these T-34s. But at the same time, the turret is the weak spot of the early T-34, the 1940. But also remember this, is that you need to hit true towards like the middle of the turret, because if you hit too high, for example right there, it's going to bounce. And then also if you shoot too low, you might actually bounce, but it might go through at the same time. So shoot true as you can towards the middle of it, and then you will be able to take out the early T-34s. So the next vehicle we have here is the T-34 1941, which is in the Swedish tech tree for Finland, and then also it is in the Russian tech tree at the same time. It is basically the exact same as this vehicle right here, except for it has a little bit of a different turret, which makes the right side weak spot just a smidge like harder to hit. And also this is another vehicle that you'll probably see pushed up a lot, which is one of those that just kind of sucks. But it's the exact same weak spot. Never go for the driver's hatch. Once again, that is probably like one of the worst spots you ever shoot for. Also, the MG port is not a shot you can go for as much either. So your only hope for killing these things from the front is you can shoot them straight right there, and it should be pretty much a one shot every time if you have APHE. But there's also a cool thing that these vehicles have that these did not, is that they have a pronounced little thing towards the middle, which means that if you can't kill them, you can pretty much gun breach them every single time. Like, let's just say that they're bushed up, you can't really see what they're doing, and you just need to make sure that they don't have a gun anymore. Just shoot towards the middle. Every single time it will defeat the breach, and then you should be able to either get on the side, or you can spend some time to MG their like bushes off or something and shoot right there, and it should be a kill. So that's the thing about these T-34s, is that they do have a really huge weak spot whenever it comes to just disabling them, which you can pretty much go for if you're not confident that you can get a shot on the sides of the turret itself. The next vehicle we have here is the T-34 1942, and to be quite honest with you, the T-34 1942 has one of the biggest weak spots whenever it comes to the early T-34s, just because the turret ring is actually increased. So as you can see right there, compared to like this one right here, look at how low the turret ring is. Like, yes, you can still shoot it right and get a shell to go into it, but there's a high probability that you accidentally like hit right there or something like that, and it does absolutely nothing. But now you have a turret ring which is really easy to hit. Pretty much every time you can go directly through it. It's not angled. It has pretty much no armor whenever it comes to it as well. So like anything can really pin this T-34 with the turret ring, and it should be a one shot pretty much every time, depending on the caliber of cannon. Like if you got the 50mm for Russia, or not for Russia, but for Germany, it might have a little bit of troubles, but at the same time, that's how at least I go for the T-34 1943, or 1942, I mean. But at the same time, the weak spots do still stand the same. You do have the like wing sides of it, but for me at least, that's where I always aim for these T-34s. I mean, you can hit right there where it's a little bit flatter. But yeah, once again, these T-34s, don't ever go for the driver's hatch. It's not worth it because the turret itself is the weak spot. So the reason I'm in a Panzer IV-G now is that I want to show you guys something whenever it comes to these T-34s. The T-34s from the Panzer IVs like Long Barrel 75 basically just gets eaten from them. Just don't shoot the driver's hatch. That's all you have to do with this. Like, these things get eaten, right? So the next vehicle that we have here is the T-34E STZ, and really the huge benefit to this vehicle is that it can't get shot like that from a Panzer IV. It has add-on armor, as you can see, where it is like welded onto it. But the problem with STZ is that it literally has probably one of the worst T-34 turrets in the game, just because even like heavily angled parts, like even like right in there, it can still pin. Like the turret itself is really, really bad. It still has that weak spot. So I don't know, for some reason you can't destroy it. You can just take out the gun barrel from the, or the cannon breech of the T-34. But yeah, overall, this thing is horrible when it comes to that. But it can survive shots to the hull, which is something that is hugely different compared to the other vehicles whenever it comes to the game. There's also some weak spots you can shoot for the hull. I mean, don't shoot the driver's hatch. That's all you have to do. We see these little tow hooks right here. You can shoot those and still go through the hull of the T-34 STZ. So the next vehicle we have here is a event vehicle for Russia, and then for China it is one of their SPAs, the Fangkong T-34. This vehicle is a little bit interesting just because it can run around and kill tanks with its 37mm cannons, but at the same time you can just use the MG and kill this tank. That's all you have to do to the T-34 Fangkong. And if you want to know something even more, you can just go directly through it with the Panzer IV, for example. But if you take any of the heat shells or you take HE or anything like that, just shoot towards the top and it's a one shot every single time. But like, let's just say the Fangkong takes out your cannon barrel. All you gotta do is just use your MG. MG everybody in the actual bathtub in the top and they are dead every single time. But yeah, that's the Fangkong. It's within the Chinese tech tree and it's also an event vehicle for Russia. Now we're on to the T-34-57s, and the only big difference armor-wise compared to the other T-34s that's at the lower battle ratings is that these vehicles have a 57mm cannon instead of the 76 that is normally seen on the rest of the T-34s. The thing about the 57 is that it really doesn't have much armor whenever it comes to tank itself. I mean, like the Panzer IV can go directly through it, and since these vehicles are such a high BR, I believe they're 4.7 now, you're going to see vehicles which can do that very consistently. The same weak spots still exist. If you don't know how to kill them or they're just pushed up or anything, you can just shoot for the middle and it'll gun breach them every time. But the thing about it is that you still just go for the sides of the turret and it should be a one shot every single time when it comes to these vehicles. Now, this is a T-34-57 1943, and this is the premium one, and to be quite honest with you, the premium one, once again, is kind of a little bit weaker than this one, just because of that pronounced turret ring. If you can see any bit of that turret ring whenever it comes to a T-34, it is basically dead every single time. But once again, Panzer IV can go directly through it. That is a huge thing that you need to know. All right, so now we're back to the Sherman and we're down to the last T-34s that are within the actual tech tree. So the T-34-85, the only real differences between the vehicles before it is that it does get a different turret. And then also it gets one of the probably better guns within War Thunder, I would say, is the 85mm. It basically, if it pins, you're dead. It is a very punchy gun. It's very good in my opinion whenever it comes to actually playing them. But at the same time, the T-34-85s, their armor is something to kind of want more of because most vehicles can just friendly pin them. There really isn't that huge of an issue, but if you're ever in a vehicle like, for example, a Sherman or within the Jumbo 75, for example, and you ever face any of the T-34-85s, the easiest way to pin them is go directly for the turret ring every single time. It will kill them. They have a very pronounced turret ring, just like some of the previous T-34s within the tech tree. The only thing about this turret ring is that sometimes the actual turret ring itself will just eat your rounds, but most of the time you'll do some sort of damage and then you'll be able to destroy them. Another thing about the T-34s is that they have really huge issues with gun depression. So if you have a T-34 that's like climbing this hill, for example, sometimes you might actually have a shot first on the cupola, and if you can get that cupola shot first, especially since the T-34 85D5T only has a commander as the gunner, you take out the gunner pretty much every single time, and it also can be a kill shot. So that's one thing to note about this as well. It goes for this one as well. You can shoot the actual cupola, it should kill the tank, and that is the easy way to take them out. Now, the only differences between these three vehicles is this one only has 4 crew, this one has 5, this one has 5. It also has a Dishka and also has a really huge like cupola at the top so you can shoot them. But the hugest difference, and it's something that is just completely related to War Thunder, is that these two vehicles right here are not modeled turret-wise volumetrically. This one is. So I want to show you something that makes like literally no sense it should be happening, but it just does. So a T-34-85, shoot it right there, it doesn't pin. That seems like a fair thing, right? Well, the reason why it will not pin that T-34 specifically is because it is modeled volumetric, and I'll show you an image in the hangar of what that means. If we take that exact same shot on this T-34-85, which is 5.7, a 0.3 BR higher than the that one, it can pin it. Both sides. There's literally no difference at all of why this vehicle should be able to get pinned, other than Gaijin modified these vehicles volumetrically. These two right here do not have volumetric armor, which means that they can just be pinned every single time whenever it comes to shooting at these, even with a 75. But as soon as you shoot at this one, both of the rounds actually just stick into the turret itself. So it's a little bit of an issue, right? And it's going to be kind of hard to actually determine which vehicle that you're fighting, especially if it's a D5T. You know that it's volumetrically modeled, so basically I would just go there every single time. You should get the commander, which is the gunner within this vehicle, and it should be pretty much easy kills. Once again though, don't go for the driver's hatch. It's not a weak spot. Don't go for it. It's very inconsistent, and I would never use it as an actual weak spot. So, and then finally we are down to the actual premiums of the T-34s with the War Thunder, and to be quite honest with you, T-34 premiums, they're pretty good, some of them, especially the German one right here. This one's actually a pretty good vehicle. T-34E was an event vehicle. This one I do believe is still in the game. I don't exactly remember if you can still get it, but it does come around during some of the War Thunder sales. And then finally you have the T-34-100, which has a really punchy gun, but really crap armor for the battle rating. So the first one here, you have the Sherman, or not Sherman, but the T-34 for Germany. And it can be a little bit of a tough one to kill because, as you can see right there, it has the exact same armor layout as the previous one, the STZ that we've seen earlier. That makes it pretty much impenetrable from the front whenever it comes to its hull, from like cannons like the 76 for America. You have it like the 75 if you ever play like Sweden, for example, can't pin this. So it makes the hull of the tank a little bit harder to kill, but at the same time, the weak spot, really for me at least, is shooting for that turret ring. That turret ring is so pronounced on these vehicles that it's so easy to kill. And like, let's just say that you can't see it, he's all bushed up and everything. Just get a clear shot for that little thing right there. You'll gun breach them every single time. You can then track them, get on the side, or you can just get rid of their like bushes and then just put a shot right there and it should do something to disable the tank. So the T-34 for Germany doesn't have to be a monster, because I know this thing can definitely do really good whenever it comes to War Thunder. But for me at least, you can get a turret ring shot, that thing is dead pretty much every single time. The T-34E is another vehicle. Once again, if you can't get a kill shot on it, just breach it every single time. It's going to be one of the easiest way to kill it. But the thing about T-34E is that it has add-on armor whenever it comes to the sides and then also the sides of the turret. So it's a little bit harder to actually get square on, especially if they're like bushed up, to where you can actually pin that area of the thing. I don't even believe there's some guns that actually can't pin it, but what you got to do is you just kind of like have to imagine it, and this one is an extremely rare vehicle. You're not going to see many of them within your War Thunder career, but just imagine that the turret itself is like right in there, shoot there, and it should pin. The only bad part about it is that you may accidentally shoot there, it does no damage, so you just have to really watch out with this T-34E. And once again, if you don't know how to kill it and you need like extra time, that is such an easy spot that pretty much any vehicle in War Thunder can shoot at, and then it can disable the tank. The next one is the T-34E. This one has chicken wire on it, is what I like to call it, and the whole reason behind that is to actually get rid of some of the like potency of heat munitions. So it will ignite HE, and I'll actually show something in a second because I've actually had this happen to me while playing this vehicle. Is that sometimes whenever you're shot within that one, it can actually detonate on top of you, like especially the howitzers can easily kill you when it comes to this vehicle. But once again, this is not volumetrically modeled like the other T-34 D5 up there, so you can just shoot right there, or you can just go for the turret ring, which is two easy spots to kill. And then finally, our very last vehicle whenever it comes for War Thunder is the T-34-100. Pretty much this thing at 6.7 can pin this thing everywhere. There's not really a huge issue. The only issues I've ever seen is people accidentally like shoot in there and it bounces. But this vehicle in itself is very, very easy to take out. Pretty much any vehicle can. It's got a very pronounced like turret ring right there, so even a 75 can just pin it. It's also got the little bit of a top portion up here, which means that maybe you can sneak like a APHE in. But the vehicle itself, while it has a really good gun, it has no gun depression, and overall, to me at least, it's not the best vehicle in the world, so it should be very, very easy to take out. So yeah, I hope all you guys love this video whenever it comes to looking at all of the T-34s whenever it comes to War Thunder. We'll also be looking at soon the KV tanks and as well as the IS tank. So do you think I should actually separate those those vehicles, or should I just do it all in one vehicle, just Russian heavies whenever it comes to War Thunder? Put your thoughts in the comments about that type of video, and I hope everyone has a wonderful day, and we'll see you guys in the next War Thunder video.